What if Harry became a teacher at Hogwarts? What if he grew tired of chasing dark wizards? Let's explore this magical Harry Potter what if. After the war, with Voldemort defeated, it was hard for Harry Potter to know what he was going to do next. He had spent his entire school career trying to stay alive and defeat the dark wizard that had waged war against him. He didn't put nearly as much focus into his classes or into what he wanted to do after Hogwarts. He didn't have a single year where someone didn't try to kill him. Hermione quickly decided that she wanted to finish her last year of school and would work at the ministry after to help better the lives of those who didn't have as many rights, mainly focusing on house elves and werewolves. Ron had decided on becoming an Auror. Harry could only think of being an Auror as the next step for him. He had spent his time at school fighting Voldemort. It would only make sense for him to continue to track down other dark wizards. He knew that he would be good at it. Kingsley Shacklebolt provided both Ron and Harry a special invitation to join the Aurors. As neither of them finished their schooling at Hogwarts, they were at a disadvantage and should not have been considered. But it would have been hard for anyone to tell Harry Potter that he could not track down dark wizards. And so, Ron and Harry began their training to become Aurors. The Auror office first set off to find all of those who aided in Voldemort's rise, capturing those who had retreated from the Battle of Hogwarts before they could be taken into custody, those who had pledged their undying support to the Dark Lord, even though they denied it now that he was gone. They were also able to use that time to exonerate the Malfoy family. Thanks to what Ron and Harry had seen during the war, they were able to prove that Draco Malfoy had been forced into his position, that he only became a Death Eater to keep himself alive. Narcissa was forgiven due to her lie to Voldemort and saving Harry Potter's life in the Forbidden Forest. Lucius was able to provide information on the other followers that were in hiding, his information assisting the Aurors in capturing many that they would not have been able to find otherwise. When Harry first started as an Auror, it felt as if he was cleaning up loose ends, ensuring that Voldemort's reign was finally and truly over. However, as they were done chasing Death Eaters and moving on to other threats, it started to feel like he was doing the same thing every day. Rinse and repeat. Getting leads and reports of the dark arts each day. Researching and tracking down wizards. A job that should be constantly exciting and always having something new waiting around the corner. Instead, felt like every day he had ever had. After 2 years of being an Auror, Ron decided to retire from the office. He instead began to work with his older brother, George. He assisted his brother in running the joke shop, Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, in Diagon Alley. George had a rough time after the war, as his twin had died in the Battle of Hogwarts. And Ron wanted nothing more than to help his brother out. This left Harry to question what he wanted to do next, even more than before. And after a couple years of doing the job without his best friend, it was more unfulfilling than ever. He tried thinking of his time at Hogwarts, what classes he was good at, and which ones he really enjoyed. He had gotten a passing score on his OWLs in many of his classes. Transfiguration, potions, defense against the dark arts, herbology, care for magical creatures, astronomy, and charms. This could lead him to a number of different career paths. He also thought of his time playing Quidditch. He was quite the skilled seeker, and he knew how much fun Ginny had playing for the Holyhead Harpies. He could still remember the day that Professor McGonagall had allowed him to join the team. How amazing it felt to catch that remembrall and how he felt so natural on a broom. Harry finally thought of his time in Dumbledore's army, being able to help his fellow students learn things that the school was overlooking, or rather that Umbridge refused to teach, or helping them learn the gaps in the curriculum as their professor changed each year. He remembered that he had tried to emulate Remus in his teaching style. Of all his defense against the dark arts teachers, Remus Lupin had truly tried to teach the students what they needed and cared for their education. He could remember the satisfaction he felt when Neville had finally mastered Expelliarmus, or when Luna had gained control of her Patronus charm, and when Ginny had surprised the whole group with Reducto. This is what he wanted to do next, pass his skills onto the next generation. He began his research into what he would need in order to become a professor at Hogwarts, if there were any sort of qualifications that would be required of him. He worried that he would be too young. but he had more than enough experience in his life to back him up. Finally, he requested a meeting with McGonagall. Mr. Potter, Professor McGonagall welcomed him to her office. "Take a seat. This headmaster's office suits you well, Professor." Harry looked around the room. The room hadn't changed much since Dumbledore had been in charge, still filled with books and random gadgets, though it seemed much more organized now. "What can I help you with?" McGonagall questioned. "I was wondering what I would need to do in order to get a teaching position here at Hogwarts." Harry returned his attention to the headmistress as he spoke. McGonagall was silent for a moment, a small smile on her face. "Harry Potter, a teacher. Is there something at the Auror's office that is leaving you dissatisfied?" "I think it's time for a change," Harry explained. "I've been chasing dark wizards my whole life. It was a great job at first, but I'm ready for something else. I can think of no better position for you than defense against the dark arts." McGonagall nodded. "My current professor that is teaching that class has been talking of retiring. I wouldn't be able to give you the position immediately, but as soon as he is ready to retire, the spot is yours." Harry nodded. "Thank you, Professor. I'll be ready when the position is open." Harry decided to retire from the Auror office immediately. He would be able to spend the time preparing and readying himself to teach the class he had always excelled at. His decision was even more justified when Ginny learned that she was pregnant. Having a much less stressful job would be important for the family that they were building. Between the money he had been left by his parents, Ginny's successful Quidditch career, and the money he had saved up while working as an Auror, they had more than enough to support themselves until Harry started his new job. It was only a year before he received a letter from Professor McGonagall. The current teacher for Defense Against the Dark Arts would be retiring at the end of the school year. Beginning September of 2004, Harry Potter would be the new teacher. McGonagall also listed the things she would need from him before the start of the year. Though the list was not long, Harry knew that it would take him some time to put it all together and would need to start immediately. He would need to create a lesson plan for each grade level and decide what textbooks he would want to use. He would be able to use his real-life experience and what he'd learned in school to create his coursework. Harry knew that much of what he learned, he had to learn younger than most would and would have to adjust accordingly. Harry spends nearly all summer working on his course plan. If he wasn't helping Ginny with their newborn son, he was preparing for his upcoming classes. September 1st finally came around, and it was time for Harry to head to Hogwarts. He had spent the last week preparing his office and meeting any of the staff that he hadn't already known. He was excited to learn that Neville had taken the herbology position after Professor Sprout had decided to retire as well. "Welcome, students," McGonagall spoke out to the Great Hall, gaining the attention of all of the students. "Now that you have been sorted, I'd like to make a couple of announcements before we begin dinner. First years, please note that the forest just past the school grounds is forbidden. Mr. Filch would like to remind everyone of the items not allowed in the corridors, such as nose-biting teacups and fanged frisbees. A complete list is in his office. Now, introductions are in order." McGonagall took a step back and motioned to the teacher's table. "As many of you know, Professor Sprout and Professor Sparks have both retired. Here to take the role of herbology professor is Neville Longbottom." The headmistress paused for a moment as the students applauded lightly. "And here to fill the position of the Defense Against the Dark Arts is Harry Potter." This led to louder clapping and whispers amongst the students. Everyone knew who Harry Potter was. There was now an entire second of history that covered what he did in the Second Wizarding War. Now, McGonagall quieted the room again. Let the feast begin. Harry walked into his first class feeling a bit nervous. He had to remind himself that if he could teach his fellow students in the middle of a war, he could teach children the same thing. His first class would be second years, and anything he could do would be better than his second-year professor. Lockhart had only taught them trivia about himself, not about the dark arts. After introducing himself, hands immediately shot into the air. Questions about his life and what had actually happened during the war. Harry couldn't help but chuckle lightly. He should have expected this. Harry agreed to answer any questions they may have after he went over the lesson plan for the term, and he warned them that he would only do this for the first day. He laid out the plan for the first term, which creatures they were going to cover and which spells they were going to learn, also highlighting what would be tested on, and explaining that they would go over how to use these all in real life. The moment he was finished speaking about coursework, the questions began, and Harry answered all of them as truthfully as he could. Did you really defeat Voldemort? How did you survive the killing curse? What was your favorite class at school? What was it like being an Auror? Did you and Professor Longbottom go to school together? What was the Triwizard Tournament like? And the questions kept on coming. The only ones he was unable to answer was if they had asked about a particular person who had died. But he was honest if it was something that was too difficult for him to talk about. His next class wasn't until after lunch, 4th years. But that had given the school plenty of time to talk about their cool new teacher that was going to be teaching the dark arts. The students were all excited to learn from a teacher that had actually had real experience in the dark arts. You've made quite the entrance. Neville laughed as he took a seat beside Harry at lunch. Students haven't stopped talking about you. Sorry, Harry apologized. I figured if I got all their questions out of the way with, we could actually focus on schoolwork the rest of the year. They've started asking me about you too, and what I did in the war. Neville took a drink. Who would have thought the two of us teachers and Ron's helping George with the shop? The three of us were set on being Aurors. I know it's only the first day, but this feels right. Harry chuckled. I spent my entire life fighting off dark wizards. It's time for something else. That's our theory. Harry Potter's time at Hogwarts has many magical stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see what other magic we uncover.